Welcome back to the Intrigue, where we explore the strange, the mysterious, and the downright shocking. Today we're diving into some of the most intense and dramatic acts of revenge the world has ever seen. We're not talking about petty grudges or minor feuds. These stories are on a whole other level, where betrayal was answered with cold, calculated vengeance. Please remember to take revenge on that like and subscribe buttons while you're at it. Our first tale of revenge takes us to feudal Japan during the Edo period, a time when honor was everything, especially for the samurai. This story is one of loyalty, patience, and a breathtaking act of vengeance known as the Chushingura, or the Tale of the 47 Ronin. The story begins with Lord Asano Naganori, a daimyo, a powerful feudal lord who was forced into a confrontation with Lord Kira Yoshinaka, a high-ranking official known for his arrogance and greed. Kira repeatedly insulted and humiliated Asano, who finally snapped and attacked Kira in the shogun's palace. For this breach of protocol, Asano was ordered to commit seppuku, ritual suicide, and his family's lands were seized. Kira, meanwhile, went unpunished. This left Asano's samurai, now Ronin, samurai without a master, disgraced and without purpose. For the 47 Ronin, honor demanded revenge, but they knew Kira would be expecting an attack. So for nearly 2 years, they carefully planned their retribution, maintaining the appearance of moving on with their lives. Some became merchants, others laborers, all while secretly biding their time. Finally, in December of 1702, under the cover of night, they struck. The 47 Ronin stormed Kira's mansion in Edo, killing his guards, and finally finding Kira cowering in a hidden chamber. They took his head and laid it at the grave of their fallen master, Asano. But here's the twist. They didn't flee or hide. They knew that, by avenging their master, they had also violated the law. Yet, in their minds, they had fulfilled their duty as samurai. All 47 were ordered to commit seppuku, a fate they accepted with honor. This act of loyalty and revenge has been immortalized in Japanese culture, celebrated as the ultimate example of Bushido, the samurai code of honor. Now let's move from Japan to 19th century France, where the inspiration for one of the greatest revenge tales in literature, the Count of Monte Cristo. This is the story of François Picaud, a man who went from a humble shoemaker to one of history's most methodical avengers. It all started in 1807, when Picaud, who was living a quiet life in Paris, found himself caught up in a web of betrayal. He had recently become engaged to a wealthy woman, but his good fortune sparked envy among his so-called friends. 4 of them conspired to accuse him of being a spy for England, and their plan worked. Picaud was arrested and spent the next 7 years languishing in a prison in northern Italy. While in prison, Picaud befriended a dying fellow inmate who revealed the location of a hidden fortune. The man, grateful for Picaud's kindness, bequeathed the treasure to him upon his death. This moment transformed Picaud's life. He escaped prison with a new purpose, not just to claim the fortune, but to destroy those who had betrayed him. Over the next several years, Picaud reinvented himself, using his newfound wealth and resources to exact revenge on each of his former friends. His plans were meticulous. For one, he poisoned him slowly, so no one would suspect foul play. Another was framed for a crime and sent to prison. A third was financially ruined, his family driven to poverty. And the final betrayer, who had married Picaud's former fiancée, was murdered in a brutal stabbing. Picaud made sure each of them suffered, leaving no stone unturned in his quest for retribution. François Picaud's story would later inspire Alexandre Dumas to write The Count of Monte Cristo, but make no mistake, the real-life revenge was every bit as cold-blooded and calculated as the one portrayed in the novel. Our next story takes us to India, where a group known as the Thugs practiced a form of revenge that spanned centuries. The Thugs were a secretive cult of assassins, whose name has since become synonymous with criminals, but their roots were far darker and more ritualistic. Operating from the 13th to the 19th centuries, the Thugs worshipped Kali, the Hindu goddess of destruction. They believed that murder was a religious act, a sacrifice to their goddess, and they targeted travelers across the vast Indian subcontinent. But their killings were not always random. Many times, the Thugs would seek out those they believed had wronged their community, their families, or even their goddess. Their methods were terrifyingly efficient. They would infiltrate a group of travelers, gain their trust, and when the moment was right, they would strike, often strangling their victims with a rumal, a ceremonial cloth. What makes the thugs particularly chilling is how systematic their revenge was. They operated in tightly knit groups, often as families, passing down the art of assassination from generation to generation. Over the centuries, they were responsible for tens of thousands of deaths, making them one of the most prolific organizations of killers in history. And it wasn't until the British colonial authorities undertook a massive crackdown in the 19th century that the thugs were finally dismantled. But for hundreds of years, the fear of the thugs haunted the roads of India. They were relentless, and for those who crossed their path, there was little hope of escape. Their revenge, often carried out in the name of their goddess, was as brutal as it was ritualistic. Now, let's travel back to the Viking Age and one of the most fearsome warriors of the time, Ivar the Boneless. His name alone conjures up images of a brutal, merciless figure, and his revenge against the Anglo-Saxon king Ella was the stuff of legend. In the mid-9th century, Ivar's father, the legendary Viking chieftain Ragnar Lothbrok, was captured by King Ella of Northumbria and executed by being thrown into a pit of snakes. The story goes that as Ragnar met his death, he vowed that his sons would avenge him, and Ivar took that vow to heart. Unlike his brothers, who were known for their physical prowess, Ivar was said to suffer from a debilitating condition that left his legs weak or possibly deformed. But what he lacked in physical strength, he more than made up for in cunning. In 865, Ivar led the great heathen army, a massive Viking force, to England, where they launched a campaign of terror. The ultimate goal? To capture Ella and make him pay for his father's death. Ivar was not content with a simple battlefield victory. According to legend, when Ella was finally captured, Ivar subjected him to the infamous blood eagle, a form of execution so gruesome it's hard to believe it's real. Ella's ribs were split from his spine, and his lungs were pulled out through the open wound, leaving him to die in agony. Whether the blood eagle is historical fact or Viking myth, what's undeniable is that Ivar's revenge sent shockwaves through Anglo-Saxon England. His name became synonymous with terror, and his conquest forever altered the landscape of Britain. Finally, we travel back to ancient Greece for one of the most famous revenge stories of all time, that of Odysseus, the wily Greek hero of the Odyssey. After fighting for 10 long years in the Trojan War, Odysseus embarked on an epic journey home that took another 10 years, filled with shipwrecks, monsters, and the wrath of the gods. But his most personal battle awaited him on his return. When Odysseus finally reached his home island of Ithaca, he found his palace overrun with suitors. These men had been relentlessly courting his wife, Penelope, assuming that Odysseus had perished at sea. They consumed his wealth, disrespected his household, and plotted to kill his son, Telemachus. For 20 years, Penelope had waited for her husband, fending off these unwelcome intruders, but the situation had become dire. Odysseus didn't just walk in and declare his presence. Instead, he disguised himself as a beggar, surveying the situation and assessing his enemies. Patiently, he bided his time, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. With the help of his son and a few loyal servants, Odysseus laid a trap for the suitors. At a feast, he revealed his identity by stringing his great bow, a weapon only he could wield, and with deadly precision, he began his revenge. One by one, he shot down the suitors, and the hall became a battlefield. Those who had feasted at his table, who had tried to steal his wife and kingdom, were now shown no mercy. It wasn't just about reclaiming his home, it was about restoring his honor and punishing those who had wronged him. His wrath was total, leaving no survivors among the suitors. Even those who had been coerced into following the crowd met the same fate. His revenge was swift, brutal, and absolute. But in true Greek fashion, Odysseus's tale doesn't end with bloodshed. After purging the suitors, he faced one final challenge, making peace with the families of the men he had slain. This moment, often overlooked, shows the complexity of revenge in ancient Greek culture. And there you have it, 5 of the most legendary and calculated acts of revenge in history. From the cold-blooded patience of the 47 Ronin to the ruthless cunning of Odysseus, these stories show that revenge, when carried out with precision, can be an art form. But they also remind us that vengeance often comes at a cost, whether it's personal sacrifice, a loss of life, or the need to rebuild what was destroyed. So, which act of revenge do you think was the most intense? Was it the samurai's honorable mission, Ivar the Boneless' terrifying retribution, or Odysseus' epic showdown? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching The Intrigue, where we uncover the bizarre, the mysterious, and the downright chilling. Until next time, stay curious, stay cautious, and remember, revenge, as they say, is a dish best served cold. Don't forget to hit that like button, it really helps the channel out. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode of The Intrigue. We've got plenty more fascinating stories coming your way.